Our next presenters, it's kind of a tag team, Jeff Morris from AV Group and Kevin Lim from Lim Geomatics, and their presentation is titled Smart Monitoring and Analysis of Truck Fleet Performance and Productivity, a case study. So, gentlemen.
Here to talk about basically a journey that we've embarked on, a partnership that's been developed over the past 12 to 14 months with Lim Geomatics. Presentation outline, I'll be talking about the background, kind of where we were 14 months ago and how we've gotten to where we are today with respect to trucking fleet monitoring. I'll talk about a problem statement, kind of the before-after, project roadmap, solution. Kevin will be talking a lot about the solution, a lot about the technical side of the product that we're using, and be able to do present you with a live demo as well today. So, and finally, we're going to wrap it up. I'll be talking about the business benefits of how we're using the product today. What we see it going forward, and the opportunities, and some concluding remarks, next steps. So the challenge, I guess 14 months ago, we were basically running on trucking parameters that were based on assumptions and averages. So for example, a truck that would be hauling 20 kilometers from a mill that was able to get directly onto the highway, parameters were the same for an individual coming up through a windy woods road. It was basically strictly based on distance, with an average speed 65 kilometers an hour, which in some cases was good, in other cases not so good. So it treated all origins and destinations the same. Truck configuration, this advancement in technology allowed us to review our trucking parameters as a whole. So we were able to distinguish between some of the triaxles that we have left, but being able to distinguish differences between the quad selfs and the quad fleet trucks. It was difficult to determine actual cycle times. A lot of it was based on looking at the load slip. What time was the truck loaded? What time did it get to the mill? Again, with everything being based on averages and assumptions, very difficult to pinpoint what was actually going on. Loading and unloading times. So this technology has allowed us to track that with some accuracy. How long are trucks being loaded in the block, particularly with our fleet trucks underneath the loader. How efficient are the contractors being at staggering their trucks, arriving on time. And the unloading times. A lot of conversations around, when loaders are down and that sort of thing. How long are the trucks actually in the mill yard to get unloaded? Fuel consumption. Again, a lot of research out there as far as fuel consumption, but to really get down to, what our fleet's using for fuel. And then the seasonality behind that, moving from summer to winter as well. So a lot of the conversations revolved around a gut feel approach. If there was a problem, it was kind of, well, maybe it's this, maybe it's that. And you kind of got to go through from start to finish to be able to pinpoint what was going on. So there was a lot of conversations around the gut feel. I feel that it's this, and you get into more of an emotional-based conversation rather than fact-based. So the project roadmap probably would have been late 2015. AV Group was at this function actually, and this is where we met Lim Geomatics. So the networking that goes on here is certainly valuable. As you can see, we've embarked on a partnership with Lim Geomatics, and since then it's gone very well. So early in 2016, we were in search of a solution. How can we make things more accurate? What's out there for products? We did do some product testing. So we reached out to multiple products, tried them out. Our biggest focus was to try to get something that was accurate, but very simple to install. A lot of the products out there, requires a mechanic to come in, take the dash out, get underneath the hood, those type of things. We wanted a product that you were able to basically move from truck to truck, very easy to install. Just to give you an idea, this product takes about 10 minutes to install, and anybody can install it. So in May of 2016, OTTs, what we call them, were installed in 50 logging trucks. Since then, it's gone well enough. We've installed another one in one of our float trucks to try to get data in advance of roads that maybe our logging trucks haven't been to yet since we implemented this technology. And we also have one in our finished pulp truck that runs from Nakwik down to the port in St. John. So that seems to be our next challenge. And within a month, we were analyzing data. So, we didn't have a lot of data, but we were able to start digging into, maybe some problem areas, that sort of thing, to be able to do some analysis. Whereas in the past, with that gut feel approach, we really had to go from start to finish to really try to pinpoint what was going on. So Kevin's going to talk a little bit about the technology side of things. For me, it just, you plug it in and it works. So he's going to explain how that all comes together.
Great, thanks, Jeff. So I was asked to kind of give you folks an overview of what's happening behind the scenes. So at the same time, I probably appreciate it's not all IT people in the room or GIS power geeks, so I've tried to bubble it up to a level that hopefully will make sense. So one of the things within our company, working with AV, they put their trust in us, and one of the philosophies we have is that we'll never try and build you anything from scratch unless you absolutely need it, and we'll try and integrate hardware where we can, or commercial off-the-shelf hardware. Hardware is a bit of a tough business unless you're really into it per se. So there's two components, A and B. A is the mobile component, and B is the web app component, or the office component. So really at the end of the day, it's an off-the-shelf digi-dongle that gets plugged into the J1939 port. It's creating a Wi-Fi hotspot and creating an interface to the ECM for the data point. So whatever you want to get off of it's fine. This is a standardized protocol. There's nothing fancy or magical here. Where our brain trust comes in is there's an Android-rooted smartphone, and rooted means we've overridden the operating system to harden it with algorithms such as if you run out of power, how does the system restart itself so a driver doesn't need to interact with the thing. As Jeff mentioned, it gets installed in just a matter of a few minutes. Dongle goes in, smartphone goes into a RAM mount. Again, you buy these RAM mounts online, no issues, and it just sits there as a passive device and does nothing. So ECM information comes from the Digi device, positioning, other types of information from the smartphone. It's going through cellular data connection, so it's not a satellite solution, or it doesn't leverage satellite connectivity, but we don't need it. Where there's no internet connection or cell signal, we just cache the data on the actual smart device. And so when it detects one of the providers, it'll simply broadcast the data points into the cloud. So coming to the cloud, AV Group MB, we've been pushing the ArcGIS platform. So within Amazon EC2, their infrastructure is in the cloud fully. It's not to say you've gotten rid of GIS planners and whatnot within the office. It just means all those bulky servers are in the cloud and managed within the cloud and leveraging those capabilities. It is an Esri backbone, so ArcGIS server 10.4 is powering everything behind the scenes. So for those in the room that understand what a platform means, at the end of the day, the platform is providing you various tools that you can basically leapfrog forward in terms of things like collecting data in the field, using an off-the-shelf tool and whatnot. So for the managers, at the end of the day, they want to analyze the data points to address some of those challenges that Jeff talked about. And that's where they'll interact with the web mapping application, which I'll give you a demo for. So one of the things we always say is that if you're really just interested in X, Y of that truck, most of these guys have smartphones. By default, someone is tracking your position. So if you use the weather network as an example and check weather, yeah, they're tracking where you are per se. Where we see the value add is on the business analytics side of things, and that comes through the web app that I'll share with you in just a moment. Okay, so the data points come in, so it is big data coming in. We're basically receiving data about every minute. The engine's being pulled every few seconds, and really it's a question of how do you construct take the data points and bubble them up into something that makes sense. So really there's 3 constraints we'll put in, and I won't dive too deep into the algorithm, but at the end of the day, if you think about a truck in a yard, it's moving around a little bit, but at the end of the day, if it hasn't moved for 5 minutes, then we consider it a stop. And then we look at for some things like active constraints. So if they don't move beyond a 1 kilometer range, then we consider that a stop area. But if it ranges beyond that 1 kilometer range, then it's an active segment, or they're basically doing something. And then we start connecting these segments. If you think of them lines built off of the points that, if one's within 10 minutes of the other, then we consider that one active segment. And we start bubbling up a picture of different segments across the landscape. And these constraints are all adjustable by the person in the office using the software. So we really focus on that configurability aspect. So let me give you a live demo very quickly here. For those who know me, there's always a live demo, and this is where either smoke starts firing off or going forward. So let me refresh this web application. We are doing this live off the internet. You'll notice that there's a prompt that will pop in. It should pop in on my Chrome browser because I don't remember the password. So let me just do a quick refresh. There we go. So now it's remembered. So we'll go ahead and log in. So the idea here is that an AV Group MB manager administrator can come in, or a contractor, or whoever AV Group decides to allow into the system. Obviously, you're in breakup right now, so we're not seeing all these these trucks whipping around on blocks, going to mills and whatnot. I suspect most are going through maintenance. But this is a live picture, so if you keep your eye to the bottom right, at times you'll see something that pops up, and it'll tell you that vehicles have updated. So this is a live picture of AV's fleet that they have, OTTs, running within. But let's say, so again, the positioning is not the value add. Like putting pins on maps, it's like a mashup. That's fine, that's been around forever. But where we see value is saying, you know what, let's take a look where AV1002 is. And then we may want to understand its cycle. So let's go back in time and go to February 1 and go to Feb 3 and then ask the question, what was the cycle for this particular vehicle? So you'll see in the bottom right, vehicle locations have updated. So several of these trucks have gone ahead and updated themselves. What you see on the left is essentially the cycle summary. So for a little blurry on this projector, so I'll read it, describe it to you. Essentially, each bucket is some type of a stop or travel time. You'll notice that, well, you probably can't see it from where you are, but there's labels. So things like unknown stop to 10708 2G block or to a mill. If you can see at the bottom, this is basically a timeline chart. So it's showing you the amount of time that this particular stop or travel time is spent in that particular point in time. So because we're a web-based GIS, we can go ahead and come in and take a look at this. So the unknown stop, almost 4 hours. We can go ahead and look at some of the engine information. Total distance 0, so it's idling. Total fuel is 2 liters. And then you can see speed is 0, obviously, because it's idling. And then you can look at fuel. You can then say, all right, the next one is unknown stop to a block. I'll move this out of the way. And then again, you can see the actual travel to the block. And then again, look at the speed through time as well as the fuel going forward. And you start iterating through that analysis going forward. Go traveling to Groupe Savoie to unknown stop was an hour duration, the speed, et cetera, et cetera. So the other element is if you're interested in just a roll-up of the summary, again, we're querying the big data in the cloud to ask it questions. So this is your view of speed through that cycle. Blue is active, red is idling. And then you could also look at that fuel information off of the truck going forward. So this is just a quick view in to understand things, investigate things. You'll notice that there's a bunch of little icons here. So because it's just a dongle that can be removed, we've added diagnostic capabilities for AV Group MB to understand whether the device is charging or if it's been removed, the truck's gone in for service, the mechanic's taken out the dongle, forgot to put it in, and they have some feedback here. But the other element is because this is completely powered by a GIS platform, we can export to shapefile, we can export to CSV, et cetera. It's a reusable data. There's no silos being created. Once it goes into the cloud, it's available for any of your business systems, whether financial, SAP, or whatever it is to leverage that particular data. So the other neat thing is that if you wanted to understand load times and unload times and different travel patterns against benchmarks that may have been set, because the data is in the cloud, you can mine it to death however you want. If you're some organizations are big into the big data side with Tableau or the types of Periscope type of technology or Power BI from Microsoft, you now are enabled because the platform is providing those interfaces into that data. So what happens here is that you have the ability, actually let me close this, well, I'll let it run. The idea here is that you can pick the trucks you're interested in, pick the routes that you have defined, and all this information is stored in the enterprise GIS. So you maintain data once, and then it's reused by the different applications. So let's say you're interested in all route names, and then you're interested in the Joe Cummings truck. You can then go ahead and select your range, and let's back up in time here. And let's go February 1 and run it to the end of February. So again, how you want to slice and dice for whatever time period is up to you. And you just say, go ahead and generate the report. So it's now essentially going to start applying some business analytics against all the data points. And these data points, they're tremendous. You can imagine per day how many data points are actually coming into the cloud. So it's going to go ahead and run its report. So it does take a while. So I have a report already in play here. So what these folks have available, AV Group MB has available, is they can look at a route. Yeah, you can read that. The start date, end date. They have the expected route information, so distance and duration. And then what they can start looking at now is from the stops to the block, or the number of stops at the block, and then at the mill, as well as the travel from block to mill. So you'll notice here that the active trip, the summary was about 117 minutes, and their forecast here I think was 70 minutes, so there's something happening here that allows them to investigate the data further to interrogate that. So lots of moving parts here, but hopefully that gives you an overview of the technology side, the enterprise GIS that's in play, that's supporting a lot of those types of problem solving, addressing those hard challenges. So I will turn it back to Jeff at this point to talk a little bit more.
Okay, thanks, Kevin. So as you can imagine, taking 50 of these units and then getting them installed in trucks that are not company trucks, they're basically owned by contractors working for the company, certainly requires a little bit of leading change. First I should mention that a lot of the contractors, no issues. They're as much interested in the data as we are, particularly ones that use data to manage their business. So that really wasn't the challenge. But certainly with the individual drivers, a lot of concerns around the GPS, the eye in the sky, the big brother. For us, it's we're not concerned about the location. We're more concerned about the data. So the location, whether it's Tim Hortons or the Big Stop, is irrelevant, but certainly the time is relevant. So certainly some time spent, explaining about the benefits of having real data and being able to have real conversations, more so than why were you at the Tim Hortons. So the analysis of the data. So I mentioned at the start that a lot of it was based on assumptions and that sort of thing as far as the parameters. And sometimes people seem to feel that they have a good handle on those parameters until you actually get some real data and you start talking about it, and you start to realize that that maybe we didn't know what we knew in the past. So the other part of that is contractor access and management. So we have the ability to provide a username and password to any of these contractors that have one of these units in their truck. Data is a good thing, but certainly needs to be managed properly. One of the concerns when we're talking to contractors is that try not to use it as a tool, as a stick. What I mean by that is all of a sudden people are more concerned about the location. So phone call is made directly to the driver. Hey, what are you doing there? Why you stop there? That's not really the intention. The intention is using the data to be able to understand how well your business is operating. So. Just some graphs that we're putting together. Actually, Kevin Lim and his team are going to be working with us this summer to provide more automation to these reports. So he was showing you a few reports. We want to tailor it to our needs. Truck PMH is a big one for us. These are all individual trucks with a 1 week and a 4 week rolling average with some targets on it. Talked about the mill unloading times. Changed the names of the mills on the bottom to A, B, C, D. But this gives us a good idea of maybe where we need to make a phone call to see what's going on, what's holding up our trucks at the mills, those type of things. And also on the other side of that, what are the other mills doing differently to try to get that unload time down as low as possible, to get the trucks in, unloaded, and back on the road. So, understanding the business. For us, AV Group, it's very important that we have healthy contractors. And, we're hoping this technology is going to be able to provide us with the knowledge to be able to assist the trucking contractors and the health of their business, so that we can identify if things are going in the wrong direction, to be able to be proactive and tackle those challenges before they become an issue. Good leading indicators of progress. Also from the data, we're able to develop some best practices. So if we see some lead indicators of things that are going well for certain contractors, having the ability to pinpoint who's doing things well, sit down and talk with them to try to transfer those best practices to maybe some of those that are struggling. Determining root causes in order to create actions to drive improvement. Again, that's just being proactive. Talked about that gut feeling approach, where in order to really pinpoint what was going on, you almost had to go through the process from start to finish. With good lead indicators, we're able to pinpoint, if something's off there, and get right down to the root cause sooner to be able to drive improvement. Pinpoint cycle times, opportunities, and gaps. I'll talk a little bit in a moment here about some of the opportunities that we see going forward with respect to cycle times. So the communication and discussion has changed from a gut feel basis to a more fact-based approach. So we're able to sit down at the table and look at the exact same data and have a good, solid conversation. Takes the emotion out of it. Sometimes the truth hurts, so it's not always an easy conversation. But at least when you walk away from the table, there's an understanding of it is what it is as far as the data, and everybody's on the same page. So this is kind of how we see things moving forward. Kevin mentioned about the ability to upload data into ArcGIS. These are all speed points. Going down through, and just with the ability to use simple symbology changes, we're able to pinpoint areas along the road network where speeds are unfavorable. So you can see that there's some points there in yellow, some points in red. Obviously, the corners at the top, obviously expect the vehicles to slow down on the corners, but it really gives us an opportunity to provide our road maintenance supervisors with maps to go out and actually pinpoint an area. This is another picture to give you a before and after example. We're able to provide our grader operators with the technology as well, so that they're able to go out and pinpoint exactly where on certain sections of road should be graded. So in the past, it was the squeaky wheel gets the grease, and you get a call from a trucking contractor, and the dispatching of the grader was based on that. Now we're able to make those decisions based on data. So, it's not always just the grader as well. It could be line of sight. So it's a dispatching of maybe the brush cutter, where trucks are able to slow down so they have that good line of sight. The opportunity to straighten some roads, some of the older roads, the windy roads, we're able to do a cost-benefit analysis on if it makes sense to spend the time and effort to do that. So just some concluding remarks. Obviously, we found a product that meets our needs. Easy to install, easy to use. We talked a little bit about the leading change. It's also easy to uninstall, so we're working on that. Partnership with Geomatics provides us the ability to modify and improve going forward. So the example that Kevin provided us is basically, that was the template. But we just sat down this spring to really show them what we're doing on a more manual basis through Excel, that sort of thing, to say it would be really nice to be able to provide us with this. And Kevin and his team, they're available just like that. They're not hard to get a hold of. So we're looking forward to getting more custom reports that we've requested for this upcoming summer. Rapidly improve our trucking business as well as improve the contractor business. So that's the goal. We want to be improving rapidly. So the sooner we can really nail down what's actually going on out there, the sooner we can put some actions in place.
So I guess just to wrap up from a technology point, hopefully what you've seen, you're sitting there and feeling pretty excited. It's really great innovation underway at AV Group here. So we've talked about the op tracker. I just wanted to paint the broader picture of what's happening within AV Group and even some of our other enterprise forestry customers. So in your top right is op tracker. So this is a mobile solution that sits in your bunchers, your skidders, your porters, whatever it is. And it's all about a simple way of calculating productivity and PMH. And again, you'll see that relationship with the cloud. So that GIS platform is providing that foundation for all the data to come together. AV Group, something they haven't talked about in the lower right is their environmental management system mobile app, cross-platform app, Android, Windows, iOS, it doesn't matter. It allows them to take paper forms and then digitize them and then allow anybody essentially to collect data and again push it to the cloud, so at any point in time if there's an oil spill or some other activity, they have that information available right away to make a decision on that. As most folks in New Brunswick know, with Adam Dick and DNR, they're rolling out their LiDAR enhanced inventory. So I got my bottom left, so I'll turn it around. Lower right, lower left is AFRIDS, and it's another web-based decision support tool that allows you to interact with that EFI and do various types of block layout, block calculations, volume calculations very easily. But the one thing I want to emphasize is that you'll notice that there's the cloud in the middle and then one below, the ArcGIS Online. So one of the things the world is moving to is connecting systems of systems. So it's a very powerful concept that as an organization you can maintain your own intellectual property, your own capabilities, expose them through web services so that other organizations, partners, collaborators or whatnot, or even competitors, dare I say, can stitch new solutions together. And this is happening right now, whether it's pairing with optimization capability, whether it's pairing with a provincial system of record, et cetera. But this is the world where it's going with a lot of these forestry companies. So that's it from my end. Right? If you have any questions, here's our contact info, and